Alright, so I believe we are live, and again, this is one of the first times we're doing this. We're using YouTube Live on air, and we're going to see if this is doing its thing here. So I'm just going to give me a couple minutes as I find my bearing, and I think we should be good to go. Again, if you're joining me, welcome. This is going to be a enjoyable evening together. We're going to spend the next half hour, 45 minutes together. Hopefully this all works out as it should. And just want to make sure that you guys can hear me okay. If you are on the blog, which I guess you should be, if you want to just let me know in the chat below this video if you can hear me okay. And if you can't hear me, please let me know in the chat by typing in, "Hey Yuri, I cannot hear you." Do something about that, and I will try to adjust that. So I'm just going to make sure everything's good to go on our end, and seems like the audio is coming across okay. Hopefully it's coming across okay on your end. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to discuss 3 energy draining foods, and we're also going to look at what they are, what are some alternatives to them, and then we'll kind of open up the line. We'll do kind of an Ask Yuri live session, get some Q&As going. And I want to start doing some more of these live sessions because I think they're fun. I'd rather speak to you guys somewhat interactively than just always doing just one-way video. So if you're watching this on the blog, I'm just going to type in a little question here into the chat. You can also respond. Just going to put in, "How's my audio?" And if you guys want to let me know that it's coming across okay, and that would be awesome. Now, if there's not enough room on the chat, then I'll simply ask you. We're actually just trying out this new chat software, so I'm not even too sure how many people we can have on the chat at once. I don't even know. So if you can't pop into the chat, if it says the number has been exceeded or something like that, then add your question in the comments section below. And what I will do is I will be in the admin side of the blog, and I'll take all of your questions and I will answer them as best I can. So, just gonna get some of these questions going. Okay, so before we get into the questions, I'm just gonna assume that the audio is coming across here, and if it's not, then that should be fun. I'm going to record it on my end just in case we need a backup. I think YouTube is recording this as well. So we're going to talk about the 3 energy draining foods, and it's actually funny that I've got 2 of them sitting in front of me at the desk. So we're going to get into this. So our number 1 energy draining food is a food that is very commonly consumed every single morning, every single day by millions and millions of people around the world. And if you've guessed coffee or caffeine, then you are correct. So why is caffeine such an issue? Now, before I go into this, let me just say that my intention is not to take down Starbucks and get everybody off coffee, because I, like many people, enjoy coffee. I enjoy the taste. I enjoy its aroma. If it's a good quality coffee bean that doesn't have any mold and it's not toxic, then I'll enjoy that. But I do only drink decaf. I don't drink caffeine anymore because I realize that caffeine is really not good for our health. So the reason caffeine, and actually it's funny because I've got a Red Bull here. Don't ask me why I've got a Red Bull in my place. I was actually shooting a video with Red Bull and some other stuff I'm about to show you. So I'm not going to drink this. But way back in the day, I used to have a couple of these. I don't even know why. Anyways, so if we look at something like Red Bull and we look at how much caffeine is in here, it doesn't really tell us on the can. Sorry, it does. 80 milligrams per 250 mils. So this has 80 milligrams of caffeine, which is relatively low compared to Monster and some of those other massive energy drinks. The recommended allowance, if you can even say there's a recommended allowance for caffeine, is roughly about 300 milligrams of caffeine per day. Now, I don't know how they came up with that number. I believe we are much better off without caffeine. And the reason for that is because caffeine is a form of stress. It's a stimulant that calls your adrenal glands into action to pump out cortisol and adrenaline. And what those hormones do is they ready your body to fight or flee a situation. So when we combine stimulants like caffeine with the added stress of life, emotional stress, daily stress, all that other stuff, it's just too much of a load on our adrenal glands. And over time, even though caffeine might give you that initial surge of energy, it doesn't last, because what those adrenal hormones do is two things. First of all, as I mentioned, they prepare you for fight or flight. And as a byproduct of that, or as part of that role, what they do is they break down stored energy. So your body stores sugars as carbohydrates, as glycogen in your muscles and your liver. And when those stress hormones are released, they go to those different sites, they break down that stored energy into individual sugar molecules that then get into your bloodstream so that you can use them quickly. The problem there, as you might imagine, is that now you have this spike in blood sugar. And that's not good, because we know that one of the most important elements of health is mitigating and maintaining healthy, regular blood sugar. If not, we end up developing things like type 2 diabetes over time. So caffeine, although it gives us this kind of artificial stimulation in the short term, it eventually leads to a crash. Because as our blood sugar goes up, the body secretes insulin, which is a hormone that takes sugar out of the blood and stores it once again. So now you have all this sugar being removed out of the blood, so you have a crash. And then you feel kind of out of it and not too good. So what do? You go for more coffee or more caffeine, and then you come right back up, and then you crash. And then you come back up and you crash. And that's typically how a lot of this stuff plays out. So caffeine is one of the most energy draining foods that you can consume. I consider it an energy vampire, because it sucks the life out of you. Okay, so I'm going to give you some much better alternative. A much better alternative actually would be this right here. So this is a fresh pressed juice. It's from one of my favorite juice bars in Toronto called Greenhouse Juice Co. Right there. And this is raw, organic, cold press. This juice here is pineapple, cucumber, lemon, and ginger. So this is a little bit more of less of a green juice, but more of a bite to it. Very cleansing, very anti-inflammatory. And I look at things like this as my morning coffee. I've actually had several of these today, and I don't say that to brag. I just say that because I ordered a bunch and I had them delivered today. So I had a bunch of juices that I had to drink. And I feel way more energetic at 7 o'clock at night, and I've been going all day long because we've got a lot of stuff on the go for my upcoming book launch, and I just feel great. I woke up this morning at about 6:30, took my dogs for a run, and I've had about 5 juices throughout the day. And for me, that's a much more sustainable way of energizing my body without compromising my health. Because even though caffeine might give you an initial surge of energy, the reality is that it actually doesn't improve your health. There really is, it really is nothing in caffeine that's going to improve your health other than, a quick surge of energy. And that's about it. So let's move on to, we got a question here from Stanley who wants to know, so what's the 5 best foods to eat? Well, Stanley, is that the 5 best foods to eat for energy? And if so, I'll get to that in a second. So if you just want to clarify that in the chat, that'd be awesome. The second energy draining food actually coincides with the first one, which is sugar. Sugar and caffeine pretty much do the same thing. They impact your adrenal glands in the same way as stimulants. They lead to a rise in blood sugar and then that crash. But the problem with excess sugar, especially in the form of Coke, now don't ask me why I've got a Coke sitting around my house, but I do. Again, I was shooting some videos of this stuff, and I've had it sitting in my place for like weeks. So I figured, hey, let's bust it out and use it as a prop. Okay, so we've got 70 grams of sugar in this Coke. 70 grams of sugar, what you need to realize here, I want to kind of distinguish between 2 types of sugar that is often found in things like Coke and juices and most packaged foods, and that is glucose and fructose. Glucose is the sugar that our cells require to produce energy. That's the kind of sugar that also spikes our blood sugar. We prefer glucose because it's cleaner, but at the same time, we don't want too much of it at once because it can lead to a spike in blood sugar. On the flip side, we have fructose. Fructose is similar to glucose, but a little bit different because it has to go to your liver to be processed and turned into glucose before your body can use it. And that becomes a problem because your liver can only facilitate so much fructose at once before it starts spitting off some nasty byproducts like uric acid and triglycerides. So if you've heard of fatty liver disease, that is a byproduct of excessive fructose consumption. It's very common with people who eat high sugar diets, lots of high fructose corn syrup that you would find in a Coke. And when you look at a food label and you see the word sugar, what that means is you're looking at essentially 50% glucose, 50% fructose. Excuse me. So if we have 70 grams of sugar, that means 35 of those grams roughly are glucose and 35 grams are fructose. So that's a problem because there's been a lot of studies that are showing that, for instance, things like fruit juice, bottled fruit juice that you can buy at the store, is heavily linked to childhood obesity. So if you think you're doing your kids good by giving them orange juice and apple juice, then I have something else for you to think about. I actually want to do a cool little experiment with you here. So my phone's telling me that I've exceeded my data plan. So I don't know what that means, but I'm not looking forward to finding out what it is. Okay, so I want to do a cool little thing with you. In this little juice box here, we have 18 grams of sugar. Okay, so I'm going to do a little calculation on my iPhone. 200 milliliters, and we've got 18 grams of sugar. So if we look at the grams per milliliter, we take, or whatever, 200 divided by 18, and we get 11.11, okay? So we have 200 milliliters of apple juice and 18 grams of sugar. So 50-50 pretty much. Apple juice, apple is a little bit different than, high fructose corn syrup, but it's more, we'll just say 50-50, half glucose, half fructose. So this is the number, okay? 11.11. That's 11, so that's basically 1 gram of sugar per 11 milliliters. Now let's take Coke, and we've got 591 milliliters, and we'll divide that by 70 grams of sugar. And look at this, 8.44. So what on earth does that mean? Based on this calculation that we just did, ounce per ounce, apple juice actually has more sugar than Coke. Okay, how about that? And what's even worse is that apple juice actually has a little bit more fructose than the sugar of Coke. And the problem again with fructose is that in a normal apple, it's fine because you have the fiber to slow down the release of fructose that would eventually end up in the liver. But when you're just drinking juice boxes and there's no fiber, it's liquid right into your system, now there's nothing to slow down the release of fructose out of your stomach into the liver. So now that becomes a problem. So if you're chugging liters upon liters of calories and sugar in Coke, Red Bulls, or apple juices, you're setting yourself up for some pretty serious things down the road, okay? So those are the two big ones. There's one more that I'm going to talk about in just a second. And Stanley is saying that he can't hear me. That's not a good thing. So let me just ask if everyone else can hear me. And if my audio is not working, then that is not a great thing. Okay, so the audio is showing that it's working okay on my end, and I'm hoping that it is over here as well. So anyways, let's, okay, so apparently everyone else can hear me, so hopefully that's working okay. Again, if you can't hear me, please turn up your volume, or maybe that's the issue. I don't know. The final food that is a big energy draining food is wheat. And why wheat? Why bread? Why pasta? Why cereal? Well, first, most refined grains like breads and pastas are very high in sugar. So they are easily digested sugars that again do the same thing that we just talked about, right? They spike your blood sugar and they do all that other stuff. But the other thing too with wheat is that it contains gluten. Gluten is a compound protein that is very problematic for our health because it's related to over 190 autoimmune disorders, and it really has no health benefit to humans. So we haven't really evolved since the time on this planet to be able to digest grains properly, and that's why a lot of paleo followers are so adamant about removing grains of all types, not just wheat, but really, glutinous grains, non-glutinous grains, because the human body has, arguably a very tough time at dealing with grains, especially those that contain gluten. Gluten attacks the intestinal lining and can lead to things like leaky gut. The protein gliadin inside gluten also very closely resembles thyroid tissue. So now that becomes a problem because the immune system can mount an autoimmune response against the thyroid because it thinks the thyroid is gluten. 90% of low thyroid, underactive thyroid, or hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune condition. And considering the heavy correlation between gluten consumption and autoimmune disease, if you have low thyroid function, you definitely want to be avoiding gluten because it's only going to make matters worse if you continue to eat it. In addition to that, as you probably know my story, I lost my hair when I was 17 to an autoimmune condition called alopecia. The reason for that is because I consumed copious amounts of bread, pasta, cereals for most of my life. And I didn't realize that I was doing my body a big disservice by consuming that food or those foods on a regular basis, on a daily basis, several times a day. So if you're used to having breads and so forth, then you definitely want to move away from those. So those are a couple reasons that you want to avoid those foods. Again, if your thyroid is compromised, then you're not going to feel very energized. Your thyroid is your master metabolism gland. So if it's low in function, you're going to feel cold, tired, a tough time losing weight, brittle hair, skin, and nails, and all sorts of other things. Cool? Okay, so those are the 3 energy draining foods, and if you can do your best to minimize or avoid those as much as possible, you'll be a much healthier, much more energetic person. With that said, let me go to some of the questions in the chat here. So Stanley wants to know, what are the 5 best foods to eat? Well, let me kind of start off by saying there's no single food that will override your entire diet, and it's tough to say that there are 5 foods that will make a dramatic difference, but I think 5 foods is definitely better than 1. So let's look at foods. In my All Day Energy Diet book, I talk a lot about this food spectrum that I lay as the foundation for having more energy. And the base of it, the biggest component of that food spectrum, are green vegetables. So if you can do whatever you can to get more greens into your day, you will do, it's probably the most important thing you can do for your health. So kale, spinach, Swiss chard, lettuce, anything that's green is going to be good for you for the most part. I'm not saying you have to go out and eat your lawn, but if you go to the produce aisle in a grocery store and you get greens, believe me, they have huge healing properties, chlorophyll, phytonutrients, tons of amazing things that do your body really good. Okay. Other than that, you want to consider really healthy fats. Fats are essential to good health. A lot of people are afraid of them because they think that fat leads to fat. The reality is that sugar leads to fat because sugar spikes your blood sugar, and that elicits a response of insulin, which then stores that as fat. Fat in the bloodstream doesn't elicit an insulin response. So even if you eat a lot of fat, some of it will be stored as fat eventually if you eat too much of it, but it doesn't trigger insulin to be released, which means you're not going to be storing a lot of that as fat. Your brain, your nervous system, the cell membranes around every single one of the cells in your body are predominantly made up of fat. So you want to be considering healthy fats: avocado, walnuts, fish oil, hemp seeds, hemp seed oil, flax seeds, flaxseed oil. What else? Olive oil, if I didn't mention that, coconut oil, grass-fed butter. These are all tremendous sources of healthy fats that are really important for good overall health. Okay? So Stanley, hopefully that gives you about 5 foods that you can start enjoying in your day-to-day. Okay, so what else do we have here on the chats? Julia wants to know, hey Yuri, what about green juice recipes, homemade, that include high glycemic fruit like apple or pineapple? Really good question. So this is an example of one of those. Pineapple, cucumber, lemon, and ginger. Pineapple, slightly higher glycemic load. I wouldn't overdo this cup of juice. I will right now because I'm a little bit thirsty. But in general, when you're making juice at home, focus on, I would say 90-10. 90% vegetables, 10% fruit. So typically if you're making a green juice, kale, celery, cucumber, cilantro, or parsley, you can throw in an apple if you want for a bit of sweetness, but don't make the juices about the fruit. So it should not be, 5 cantaloupes, 10 apples, nothing like that, because if you do that kind of juice, make sure you sip it slowly over time and you're not chugging it, okay? Because again, all that fructose can be right into your liver, and it's going to be, your liver can only process so much fructose at once before it starts to create nasty fat lipids or fat droplets inside the liver and spitting out triglycerides into the blood. So yeah, and Julia, apples are generally not high glycemic, but they do contain higher amounts of fructose, so you don't want to overdo the fruit in general in a juice. Okay, so T1 says, so you're saying we shouldn't eat wheat? Yes, that is what I'm saying. Now, my weakness is bread, so if I go to a restaurant and they've got amazing bread there, it's very tough for me to resist that. And this is an important thing to remember. Environments will always trump willpower. You can do whatever you want to kind of say to yourself, I will not eat this when I go out, so I will not have this if it's in the house. But the reality and the research shows that our willpower is very, very weak in comparison to the power of our environment. So in your household, don't bring bread into your kitchen, because if it's there, it'll likely get eaten. If you bring in cookies and chips, likely they will get eaten. So keep that stuff out of the kitchen. Don't bring that into your house, because if you do, it's not going to be a good thing, okay? So what can you use instead? You can do things like seaweed nori wraps. We've got some amazing recipes for that. You can use a gluten-free bread. There's some really good recipes out there where you can make like almond flour or even potato starch as a flour to make some really delicious breads that are gluten-free. So if you want to transition away from wheat to no wheat, that's a great alternative that you can use. Sorry, I'm just replying to a question here from Stanley, who still can't hear us for some reason. Again, this is the first time we're using this setup here at YouTube Live, and we're using this cool little chat function underneath the video. So we're going to be doing this over the next couple of weeks just to kind of see if you guys enjoy this. And if you do, give me a thumbs up, invite your friends over, let's get this nice and interactive. I'm going to do this hopefully once a week, and I'm here to help you guys out. I'm going to take your questions and do my best to answer them as much as I can. Okay, Julia, follow-up question. Is ketosis achievable if you start your day with green juice? So ketosis is a state whereby your body doesn't have enough carbs or sugars, and it kind of switches over to producing what are known as ketone bodies as energy. Ketones are actually a much cleaner fuel. Your brain prefers ketones to glucose, which is kind of interesting. So if you start your day with green juice, will you switch over to ketosis? I don't necessarily know. It depends on how much sugar is in the green juice, where you're at in terms of your stores. So I'm not too sure about that one, Julia, but kind of on that line is the benefits of fasting, of not eating for several hours, is actually very, very, very well substantiated. So if you wake up in the morning and you don't eat until lunch, that's a very good thing for a lot of people to do, because when you don't eat, you allow your body to spend more of its energy on breaking down immune complexes, repairing damaged cells, and doing other things it needs to do to really thrive. And when you're eating all the time and digesting all the time, you don't have access to that. because your body is digesting. So I don't know if it shifts over to ketosis if you have a green juice, but minimal eating or no eating at all for anywhere from 18 to 24 hours has been shown to be really, really, really beneficial from a fat loss perspective, hormone regulation, and it doesn't compromise your muscle mass because it actually increases growth hormone, which is kind of interesting. Okay, so T1, I love Freekeh. Is this bad for me? As now I've introduced it to my family alone or along with a lot of other super grains like quinoa. I've actually never had Freekeh, but I'm assuming it's gluten-free, as is quinoa, and it should be fine. I would just, I wouldn't go too crazy on grains in general, even if they're non-glutinous grains, just because, again, they do contain lectins, which can cause some inflammation in the gut, and more so in some people than others. So don't go too crazy on them. They're also more acidic than, for instance, more plant-based foods like vegetables. So they're definitely, quinoa is amazing, but I would just kind of be mindful of how much grain you're bringing into your body. Okay, Nubia, what's your view on organic coffee with a combination of coconut oil and grass-fed organic butter, for instance, bulletproof coffee? So Dave Asprey is a good friend of mine, and we always have fun debating back and forth. He has this t-shirt that says, Caffeine, my drug of choice. We're developing a t-shirt that says, Greens, my drug of choice. So I think it's a fun little back and forth debate. I actually enjoy bulletproof coffee. I drink the decaf version when I do, because it's mold-free, it's very high quality, minimally processed. Dave is a mad scientist for really producing very high quality stuff. So yeah, if you're gonna drink coffee, go bulletproof, go decaf, and the combination of the coconut oil with grass-fed butter in there is a nice combination. So there you go, Dave. There you go, buddy. There's a nice little shout out for you. Okay, let's go to the blog comments. I'm just gonna scroll down the page. And I'm just going to refresh this actually so you guys can see this too. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this so far. If you are, give me a little thumbs up in the chat. And let's see what we've got going on in the comment section. So Julia, I don't know if it's the same Julia that I was just posting in the chat. Maybe it is. So she's asking, hi Yuri, I'm so looking forward to this event, especially the Q&A. Until then, I have a question that has been bugging me for a while. What's the optimal ordering and combination of supplements? Following you and a handful of other select health experts, I decided to add a few things to my morning routine, but the problem is most of these things are supposed to be taken first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, right after you get out of bed. Obviously, you can only take one like this, since all others will be that one and not an empty stomach anymore. I'm not too sure what that means, but she'd like to include the following: oil pulling with coconut oil, glass of filtered water, glass of lemon water, probiotic capsule, glass of green drink, vitamin D, fish oil. Okay, Julia, so honestly, the order of all that doesn't really matter. What I would say is start with the oil pulling, do the thing, swish it around your mouth for 10 to 15 minutes, clean out your mouth. That's a good way to start. That's actually what I do sometimes first thing in the morning. Then I don't distinguish between lemon water and normal water. Either they're interchangeable. You can have either one or both at the same time. It doesn't really matter. Probiotic, I would recommend having on an empty stomach. And then after that, you can have your greens, you can have your vitamin D, which will actually help the absorption of certain vitamins in the greens, and a spoonful of fish oil all at the same time, because the fat in the fish oil will help vitamin D absorption, because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. If you have it with a good healthy fat like fish oil, then you allow the vitamin D to get into your body that much more effectively. Cool? So another question by Julia. I'm just gonna paraphrase it here. So just saying that she came across, read a book that's saying that if you want to lose weight, green juices are great and healthy, but not for a fat loss program. His reasoning was that all juices and blended foods are absorbed too quickly and produce spikes in insulin levels, which interferes with fat loss. What's your take on that? So if you're juicing fruit, definitely not a good thing to do. If you're using smoothies that have copious amounts of fruit that are not buffered by fiber or protein or healthy fats, then you're going to spike your blood sugar a little bit higher. So if you're doing smoothies that are banana, dates, like really sweet things, you don't want to be overdoing that. After a workout, great. That's the only time you really want to have a higher sweet type of drink. But other than that, like, I mean, green juices, I don't know anybody who's really not improved their health by having more green juices or green smoothies in their day, in their life. So from a fat loss perspective, you want to consider how much sugar you have coming in. So if the juices have higher amounts of fruit, you may want to consider getting more active. You also may want to consider limiting the amount of fruit that you have in the juice. So you have more vegetable-based stuff. And also take your time when you drink your juice. So I'm not chugging this whole thing at once, mainly because I'm speaking. But if I were to take a sip now, I'm chewing my juice. And that's going to activate some enzymes to help in the digestion of it, even though it doesn't really need to be digested. But it's a good practice. You want to chew your liquids and drink your solids. Cool? Okay, Roy Ram is asking, I'm 75 years old and very, very sick. If you do not answer my question with all this computer crap, I will delete you and return to my old half-good supplements. Cool. Well, that's a very nice question. Thank you, Roy. On that, I will not answer that question because there isn't a question to be answered there. Anyways, back on the chats. And thank you for the love, guys, the thumbs up. Again, I'm going to continue doing this on a weekly basis, so invite your friends, tell your loved ones, get them all involved. It's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, and here's a cool little tidbit of information. I will be on Dr. Oz. I'm going to New York next week to tape, and I'll be on air on your TV towards the end of September, which should be a lot of fun because that's when my book is going to be released in stores. So I think the timing is going to be perfect. So I'll let you know via email exactly when I'll be on air, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's something we just found out about a couple days ago. So I wanted to let you know first and foremost because you're on the line with me here. So let's go to a question from Helena. Hey Yuri, a quick question about pain. My legs quickly start to hurt when I squat, jump, sprint, pull sleds, etc. I want to do these exercises to the fullest, but the pain is extreme and forces me to slow down and stop. It's not fatigue, more like tightness and pain. What can I do to alleviate and get rid of this? Is it a soft tissue problem? Thank you so much. Well, it's very tough for me to say that or to give any kind of diagnosis or prognosis on this side of a computer. Again, there could be a lot of things going on, but one thing I can say is that if your body is too acidic, it's going to have a tough time producing energy and it's going to fatigue a lot sooner. You'll also find that you have more stiffness. Your fascia is a lot tighter than if you were more alkaline. So this is one of the beautiful things about drinking more green juices and using things like my energy greens, shameless plug, is that by getting more alkalinity into your body, it naturally buffers out the excess acid. And one of the things that I've noticed, one of the quickest things you'll notice with more alkalinity is less stiffness and joint pain. And we've realized this with a lot of the people who've gone through various programs that I've put together and a lot of our recent beta testers for the all-day energy diet. One of our beta testers, James Mosley, in addition to having, and he's a 63-year-old male, he had far more energy, more mental clarity, and most notably for him was he had less achiness and stiffness in his joints and his body in general. And that's because as you alkalize your body is able to naturally do what it's supposed to do. And there's a couple of things here. The alkalinity is really important, but second, you're also eating foods, kind of plant-based, greens, all that good stuff, that are reducing inflammation in your body. And when you're working out, you're creating a lot of inflammation at the microscopic level. So you need to do things that are going to counteract that inflammation. And by adding in more plant-based foods, that is the most proven, powerful, and fast way to feel better, recover faster, and to have less of that kind of stiffness and achiness. So I don't know if that's the solution, Helena, but it definitely will not hurt by getting more alkalinity into your body. Question from Oliver. Are there any fruits and vegetables that have vitamin B12? It depends. It depends. B12 is originally derived from soil bacteria. So when they say we have to eat meat for B12, the reality is that the meat has consumed or rolled around in the dirt or in the grass, and it's consumed those organisms, which has helped it create B12. So if I was recently doing some research on maca, and some studies, some sources say that maca is a good source of B12. I'm not too sure if that's true, but I don't know of any other plant-based sources other than actual bacterial cultures that would be a good and significant source of B12. So I hope that helps you out. Otherwise, you can look at good quality meats. You can look at bee pollen, bee products, stuff like that. But if you're strictly vegan, then you may want to look at some bacterial things. Just trying to think, like nutritional yeast might be a good source of B12. It's a good source of most B vitamins. I don't know how much B12 is in there, but I definitely know it is a good source of most B vitamins. So that could be a good source. I'm just going to answer some more comments on the blog here that are popping in because I believe the chat is completely full. I'm just going to get these live in a second. Okay, so Lucy says chat roll is over capacity. Thank you. So she wants to know, I wonder if you disagree that a little caffeine is good before a weight workout to help lay down more muscle. Now that I've never heard before. The only kind of thing I can think of there would that be caffeine will give you an extra little kick maybe to lift more weight, which may in the long run help you pack on a little bit more muscle. But I don't think that's a good enough reason to be using caffeine. So please don't use that as a strategy. And these are the little hacks, the little gimmicks that I really try to get you guys away from, because none of this stuff is sustainable and it's not healthy. You're much better off doing things to improve your overall diet and your overall way of being so that you feel more energized, that you have the fuel in the tank already to go to the gym and have a great workout without caffeine. And so you're actually providing your body with nutrients that it can use to benefit your muscles so that you can actually reap the benefits that you want, whether it's fat loss or muscle gain or anything else. Okay, so please, hopefully, slowly but surely, I want to really, get this into your heads that there's little gimmicks like this all over the place, and call them biohacking or whatever else you want. I don't think they're very sustainable or a long-term strategy. Question from Ryan. Hey Yuri, I've got a few questions. How do you move forward from plateau even when you exercise regularly? You change things up. That's the whole notion of periodization. So if you do the same workout over and over again, same volume, same intensity, eventually you hit a plateau. Excuse me. Periodization is this idea of progressive workouts and then recovery. Progressive workouts and then recovery. So each time you go through that recovery stage, you come back to what's called supercompensation, which is essentially become stronger than you were before, and you stagger or you kind of step up that progression again, recover, and go up like that. So that's probably the most effective way to avoid plateaus. I think in general, adding more recovery into your routine is a very, very good idea. Second question from Ryan. Are there any differences between what teenagers should do in terms of nutrition exercise in comparison to adults? Small little things. I mean, I'm sure teenagers can probably push themselves a little bit harder. Adults are probably a little bit more burned out, so you may want to kind of bring back the intensity, or at least allow yourself more rest between exercises and a workout, so you're not profusely dying every time you work out. Because if you're stressed out and your adrenals are already taxed, that type of working out will only make things worse. So intensity is important. Heavier weights, higher intensity, but you want to give yourself a little bit more recovery, especially if you're a little bit older. So thank you, Ryan. Lisa wants to know, excuse me, my throat is drying out. I've been doing interviews for like the past 5 hours. It's been awesome, but I'm starting to lose my voice. So Lisa is asking, I have sugar and salt cravings. I've started eating nuts and dried cranberries to help curb the cravings, yet I still find myself reaching for cookies and chips. So what do you suggest? I would have a look at your adrenals, because they're probably taxed, and you want to be looking at things that I discuss obviously in a lot more detail in my new book, The All Day Energy Diet, which show you how to recover from all that stuff. And also just on a really quick thing you can do is grab some kelp, some kind of seaweed at your health food store, and just use that to chew on. Chew on that, because it's going to give you natural sodium and amazing amounts of micro mineral, very, very small minerals that your body requires that it's not often getting. And a lot of times they can be the solution to a lot of your salt and sugar cravings, because salt and sugar cravings can very often mask underlying mineral deficiencies. So that's what I do is I'll go home and I'll just chew on some wakame or some kelp or some dulse, and I'll just kind of let it sit in my mouth. And then it's amazing how it happens, but it really does do a nice job at cutting out the cravings. The other thing is you want to alkalize your blood. So that's why I continue to talk about our greens as being such an important component, or green juices or green vegetables, because the more you alkalize your blood, the more you get sugar out of your blood, the more you get the yeast and fungus and garbage like that out of your blood. And if you don't have that stuff in your blood, you're not going to want to crave sugar. It's also going to readjust your palate so that you enjoy the taste of greens, you enjoy the taste of vegetables, and sugar becomes way too sweet. So that's what I would suggest, Lisa. Question from Carol: what are the ingredients in that drink again, please? Where can be bought in Toronto? Are you referring to this? If you are, or let's go to this. I think this is what I was talking about. So this drink here is from Toronto. Summerhill and Yonge is the location. It's Greenhouse Juice Co. Amazing juice place. Pineapple, ginger, lemon, and cucumber. I just polished one off a little bit earlier, which is called East of Eden. This one has romaine lettuce, kale, celery, apple, and lemon. Sorry, that's my little dog Jax, who's running around. Let me see if he wants to say hi. There. Oh, there he is. You want to say hi, buddy? There's Jax. It's been a while since I've had him in some videos. So he's running around tearing up the place. And now he's made his cameo. So took them for a run this morning, hoping that they would tire them out. I don't really think it did. I think they're fitter than they kind of lead on. So yeah, so those are the ingredients into that juice. Hopefully that helps you out, Carol. I'm just going to get these live onto the blog so you guys can see them as well. And let's pop back over to the chats. So John wants to know, 6 months ago I started following Yuri's programs. Today I have less chronic pain, take no prescription meds, have lost over 20 pounds, and feel much better than I have in nearly 30 years. Thanks so much. So simple once you commit to being healthier. John, thank you so much. I'm going to have to screen capture that and share that on Facebook. I love hearing feedback like that. It's part of why I do what I do. I do what I do because I love to do it, and I know it makes a difference. And it's just great to see, people like yourself, John, and perhaps a lot of people watching this, to dramatically improve their health with very simple recommendations. And it's awesome. Somebody asked me earlier, how do you describe what you do? And I thought to myself, well, I help people eat healthier. I help them have more energy. I help them get in better shape. But I think ultimately what I do is give you guys hope. That's hopefully what I want to get across, is that tomorrow can be better than today. Your future, it can be infinitely better than today. And I'm not saying that today sucks, but as humans, we have this amazing ability to project and visualize and create the future of our dreams. And I hope that with your health and with your fitness, you realize that your body is amazingly resilient. You can turn things around very quickly. If you feel like crap today, You can make some simple shifts in how you eat and how you move and how you think, and you can feel like a new person in a couple days. It really is amazing. So thank you, John. Question from Lane. I just got a zipper on my chest 2 months ago, open heart surgery, and now, of course, the cardiologist put me on statins. I'm having side effects and want off the meds. I don't know enough to go it alone. Any ideas or where to find a local natural or functional cardiologist? Lane, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm happy to hear that you're okay, but you know, being subjected to statins like Lipitor for who knows how long is definitely not a lot of fun. Again, what I would suggest is, again, I don't know where you live, so maybe if you want to let me know where you live, that might be helpful. But I think, you know, try to find a naturopathic doctor in your area, because as I often tell you guys, and I'll type this into the chat because this is really important to remember. How you heal anything is how you heal everything. So, and I talk about this as one of the 7 commandments of energy in my new book, The All Day Energy Diet, which, by the way, I'm going to give you guys access to in the next day or two. I'm going to be giving away a couple free copies, so stay tuned for that. But, you know, I've really spent a lot of time focusing on energy because I feel energy is synonymous to health. And if you eat in a way that energizes you, everything else improves as a byproduct. When you follow the protocols that I'm talking about in this very call, in this very live cast, you naturally lose weight more easily. Your skin improves. Your cardiovascular health improves. All sorts of markers of health improve. It's just because the way to eat to have more energy is the way to eat to lose weight, is the way to eat to have better cardiovascular health, is the way to eat to prevent cancer. There's small little differences here and there, but the foundation is the same. So I can't tell you to go off your meds because obviously I'm not going to do that, and it's not my place to do that. But if you can clean up your diet in a way where you're getting these types of foods, these foods that support your blood vessels, that naturally allow your blood to flow freely and nourish your cells and reduce inflammation and toxicity in your bloodstream, I would find it difficult to believe that you would have to rely on statins for the rest of your life, because you don't. Heart disease is a completely preventable and reversible condition through diet and exercise alone. Cool? So I hope that gives you a bit of hope, Lane. Again, try to find a naturopathic doctor in your area so that they can go a little bit more in depth with you about that. Okay, next question in the chat from Thade. I hope I pronounced that right. I had a huge injury on my knee in 2004, lost a big amount of muscle. It has been challenging to recover the strong leg. Can you advise on it? Okay, so that's 8 years ago? No, sorry, 10 years ago. I thought we were in 2012 for whatever reason. 10 years ago. I broke my leg when I was 15. It took me about 6 months to get the muscle back to where it was before breaking my leg. So what you want to do is obviously focus on the weaker leg if that's your priority. So if you have less muscle on one leg, then do your best to build up the muscle on that one leg, and then do some kind of bilateral stuff where you're working on both sides at the same time. But other than that, I'm not too sure what else to say. So you just, if you've got one, like a tennis player, if you have one big arm and one small arm, focus on building the muscle in the small arm, and eventually it'll get to the point of the big one. Okay, hopefully that helps. Oliver just has a follow-up question on the B12. He's done some research on Google and wants to know if spirulina contains B12. I can't remember off the top of my head if it does, but I wouldn't say that it's a significant source of it. And also, you're not going to be eating copious amounts of spirulina to really get enough of it. So spirulina definitely is a tremendous superfood. By all means, enjoy it to the fullest. Greatest source of protein on the planet. 60% protein, more than any other food. But again, how much of that are you going to eat? Probably not a lot. Maybe a tablespoon a day. So it's not going to hurt you. By all means, if you think you can get some B12, and I'll probably have to look into that for a future call. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. And I think it'll be okay. Nicole, what is the best live blood test to get done to see what's really going on inside our body? I recently have had some cellulite appear in places I never had an issue with. So best live blood test, I would say, well, there's a couple. If you want to see your blood live under a microscope to really get a good understanding of the health of your blood and the health of your body, do a live cell microscopy. I'll just type this in. Or live blood cell analysis. This will show you exactly what's happening in your blood. The quality of your blood cell, your red blood cells, if there's fungus, yeast floating around in your blood. Is this the be all and end all? No, but it's probably the most comprehensive in terms of giving you a real-time snapshot. Like right then and there, they take a finger prick of blood, put it under a microscope, and you can see it on camera. It's eye-opening. You'll see, why perhaps you're having a tough time with some cellulite based on the health of your blood. Other than that, you can look at, I'm trying to think of specifically the cellulite or weight gain. It could be a hormone issue. So you may want to do a salivary hormone panel, which I think is actually a really good kind of baseline for everyone to do. It'll give you indications of cortisol, thyroid, DHEA, testosterone, stuff like that. And if a lot of that stuff is out of whack, then that could be an indication that your body's having a tough time utilizing fat and more of an easy time storing it. So let me just write that in for you. So that would be a salivary hormone panel. So this would be a saliva test and it measures hormones. Okay, so another question from T1. I've been using coconut oil for cooking and olive oil for salad dressing, but the other day I watched a program on the BBC that said coconut oil is not as healthy for you as it is high in saturated fat, which we know we should eat less of. Should we really be eating less saturated fat? I don't know. And after 4 years of using coconut oil in my cooking, I'm a little concerned. What are your views? So I eat coconut oil by the tablespoon because it is loaded with medium chain triglycerides. So just before, let me back up for a second. Coconut oil is a saturated fat, which means that it has no double bonds, which means that it's solid at room temperature. We've been led to believe that saturated fats are bad for us. But the reality is the majority of fats in coconut oil are short chain, 4 to 6 carbons in length. If this doesn't make sense for you, don't worry about it. But essentially what this means is that the shorter the chain of fat, the more easily it's used for energy and less readily it's stored as fat. Okay? So on the flip side, we have stearic acid, which is the type of fat that you would find around like the rim of a steak, for instance, like the fat around a steak. That fat is predominantly stearic acid, which is 18 carbons. That's a triglyceride. And that is going to be more readily stored as fat because of the length of its chain than saturated fat from coconut oil, even though they're both saturated fats. So coconut oil is tremendously healthy. Medium chain triglycerides, which are actually burned as fuel, amazing antibacterial properties. Oil pulling with coconut oil, a great way to start the day or end the day. Coconut oil is amazing. If there's one food I could only ever have, it would probably be the coconut. You have coconut water, the coconut flesh, combined you've got coconut milk, the coconut oil. It's the complete food. It's incredible. Do not be scared of it. Just make sure you get an organic, virgin, extra virgin, cold press, however they want to call it, version of that coconut oil, okay? It is good for you. Nubia, hey Yuri, I took your Nutrition Academy courses and learned so much about nutrition. It's such a great way to get answers to all the questions everyone is asking. Awesome, thank you. And so a lot of the questions you guys are answering, I've answered in very clear detail in Super Nutrition Academy, as Nubia has just mentioned. If you guys want to learn more about it, I will shamelessly put in another great plug, because this is a program that I think is probably one of the best things I've ever created. I spent a ton of time, 1,000 hours of research to bring you guys the fundamentals, to real understanding of how your body works, of how all this stuff works, of all these questions. Why is coconut oil good for you and not bad for you? All of this stuff is explained with science to back it up. So it's not my opinion, it's pragmatic advice combined with objective science. You'll love it. It's awesome. Okay, let's go back to the blog and the comments area. And obviously we're going to be running out of time here, but I want to thank all of you guys for all the amazing questions and for taking the time out of your evening to join me tonight. Again, I love doing this, so thank you. I'm just going to get a couple of these questions live on the blog so we can see them together. And where are we right now? Let's go back to the chat for a second. Stanley, I'd like to get super ripped and build muscle. Can I build muscle and fat loss at the same time as doing cardio every day healthy? You can build muscle and burn fat at the same time. That would probably be the domain of my good friend Tom Venuto, who has a book called Burn the Fat, Feed the Muscle. He specializes in that area. My experience with building muscle is limited, but I can say from firsthand experience, if you want to build muscle, you have to eat all the time. It's as simple as that. You have to just, here's the formula. I'm going to type it in. So building muscle equals destroy your muscles in the gym plus eat all the time. Okay, it's as simple as that. So can you burn fat at the same time? Yes, if you kind of program your workouts a little more strategically, you can do that. Obviously, it goes beyond what I can provide for you in this Ask Yuri session. But if you want to learn more about it, check out Burn the Fat, Feed the Muscle from Tom Venuto. Really good book. Nicole Miller, true story, guys. I took his Super Nutrition Academy. Amazing, amazing, amazing. This is great. This is just, thank you. This is what I love to see. It's just great to have you guys jump in and plug my own stuff for me and give us, kudos for the work that we're doing, because I think we are doing amazing stuff, and it's always great to hear amazing feedback from our students, from our customers. So thank you for that, Nicole. I really appreciate that. Let's see what else we got. Just let me go back to the comments on the blog for a moment. Just give me a second while I refresh. I'm going to answer 2 more questions, and then I have to finish this because I'm going to have to eat my dinner soon, and I just need to step away from the computer for a little bit, because as much as I love serving you guys, I really need to take care of myself and rejuvenate, as you should as well. So just let me grab a sip of this. Oh, wow. It's got such a nice kick, like the ginger and pineapple. It actually makes my mouth water, it's like my saliva, as I'm drinking it. Pretty awesome. Okay. Jim has a question. Have you heard of Ambrotose by Manitech, and do you have any opinion as to its nutritional value? Sorry, Jim. Never heard of that. I'll look into it for next time, hopefully. Kelly. Hey Yuri, I play tennis and I eat dates on my changeovers instead of energy bars, and just wondered how many I should eat per set, as I don't want to overdo it, but I've heard dates are the best food to eat before and during a workout or game. Correct. They are very high in glucose, very low in fructose, so they give you that immediate energy that your muscles want during a game. How many do you need per set? I have no idea. Depends if you're playing Rafa Nadal over 5 sets and over 5 hours, or if you're playing for an hour. So it depends on the amount of exertion. I would say, honestly, we have more energy in our muscles than we tend to think we have. You have more stored sugar as glycogen than we really believe. So if you were to really go a full out kind of marathon, that would be the only point at which you would start to really tap into exhausting your glycogen reserves. So I think that about maybe 1 date per set should be more than enough. I think that'll be good. Try it out and see how you go. Kathy, I'm really struggling to lose this last 10 pounds of weight. I've heard people say that nuts and seeds are healthy for you and can help you lose weight. Is there a limit to the amount that I should eat to lose weight? I also average 5 to 6 hours of sleep per night. That will keep me from losing weight. Will that keep me from losing weight? So let's go in reverse order. This will be the last question, guys. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time as I answer this last one. 5 to 6 hours of sleep per night has been shown to definitely increase your likelihood of obesity, as well as cardiovascular issues, earlier death, and obviously gaining weight. So Kathy, yes, if you're not sleeping good quality sleep, 7 to 9 hours of what you should be after, if you're not getting that, then you're kind of putting yourself at risk for, for bigger things. No pun intended. Nuts and seeds, I don't really believe that they can help with weight loss. I don't know where you get that from. Like, again, it's so interesting to hear all the information that's put out there. The only thing I can think about is that they might be higher in protein. But again, they're higher in calories. So if you eat, for instance, some raw foodists that are heavily into using copious amounts of nuts and seeds, they don't necessarily look thin because they're eating copious amounts of calories through nuts and seeds. So I would say the palm of your hand is about as much nuts and seeds as you really need to have on an average day. Okay? And look at walnuts, almonds as your staples. Cashews, pecans, pine nuts, pistachios, you can add those in. You can enjoy them in the odd raw dessert if you want, but I wouldn't make those like a heavy focus of every single day. Cool? All right, guys. Well, there we go. That takes us to just over the hour. I hope you've enjoyed this first official live cast. If you enjoy this, I want you to pop over to, do me a favor actually, I'm going to have you pop over to my Facebook page, and I will give you the link for that, as if I don't already know it, which is funny. So if you could do me a favor, if you could pop over to my Facebook page and just leave me a comment just saying, yesterday I really enjoyed this live cast, do more of them. Just give me your feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Facebook page, just so that I know that we're on the right track. If you want to see more of this stuff, we'll continue doing it. And if this time of day is good for you guys, then that would be awesome. So I want to just finish up by saying thank you so much. I really appreciate all the amazing comments and kind of pseudo testimonials that many of you have left in the chat, as well as in the comments. And we'll probably do this again next week. I'll be in New York with Dr. Oz the later half of next week. So I'll see if I can sneak one in Monday or Tuesday. And once again, guys, if you can pop over to Facebook, just let me know on the page over there what you thought of this. And again, this should be live on YouTube, I guess, within the next little bit, as YouTube will be recording this. So you can always find it on our YouTube channel. And there we go. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm off to have some dinner and relax for the rest of the evening. It's time to shut her down. I hope you do the same. And I look forward to speaking with you very soon. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me.